So I'll start recording now. Some of the things that we're hoping to cover today, we're going to do a sample webinar, hopefully on your screen here. I'm going to double check that you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing, which you are. We're going to run through a sample Encore GPR, one that you're going to have to do by the January 20th deadline. Encore changed a lot of that to try to align with CNCS's reporting, and we're happy about the changes, but since it's new, we wanted to show you what it would look like to submit a sample one. If you've been in there, some of this might be review. At the end, we're also going to run through quickly the volunteer mobilization targets, submitting a sample one of those, and then also, hopefully, if time permits, running through a sample form, submitting a member reflections through the JOT form. That is also new. So before we get started, I want to call all of your attention to the handouts portion of this GoTo webinar. If you've been on some of our TTA ones where we've provided training and technical assistance, you should be able to find the handouts where they typically are. I've posted 5 of them there today. All of them are just helpful for your progress reporting. They also might be helpful to pull up, especially the program progress reports. That's one of the last ones in the list, at least in my list. That'll be helpful as we're working through the sample progress report. You may want to follow along with the instructions to cement some of those processes as you have to do them yourself. So here I am in the Encore Reports sample, the Encore Reports. We have a program director test environment that I'm in. We do a lot of this. We use this a lot for when we're having issues in Encore. It acts much like a regular program as you would see, so hopefully all of this functionality is the same. To begin, submitting your Encore GPR for the regular progress reports, you just go under reporting as you would have in the past, and then submit program reports, Encore GPR. I'm going to click on that. And like I mentioned, we're going to be doing a sample one today. Right away, you see a number of already, when you first go into the Encore GPR, this will look different. Because we've been doing a number of tests in here, there's already 4, really 5 with the performance measures only created Encore GPR reports. This one, once you create and save a quarterly progress report, it cannot be deleted. So I had hoped to delete all of these before so that we could run through a quarter one like you will, but all the functionality is the same. So for today, I'm going to be adding new, just as you would typically. And I'm going to create a made-up grant number. This would be your federal identifier for your grant. It'll look something very similar to this. This is a made-up number for our test purposes. And our grant year is 2016-2017. Oh. And so when you first come in here, as I was mentioning, we've already created a number of ones for our testing purposes. But if you were your first one, when you go in and start working on quarter one, you'll see options for quarter 1 through 4 as well, and quarter 5, and performance measures only as an option to you. Your first one, you'll want to select quarter 1, but as I mentioned, since we've already been using this as in the test program, I can't select quarter 1, but I'm going to do quarter 5 just for practice purposes. The amendment number we're going to leave blank. And so then you're going to be selecting the reporting period start date. So this would be your grant contract start date. So for some of you that will be September 1st, which is what I will do in this example. Some of you this might be August 15th. And then the period end date is always December 31st, which I can select here, even though it says January 2017. You can see I can see some of the dates in December of 2016. This grantee narrative one at the bottom, this isn't mentioned specifically in our progress reporting instructions. It may be later in some of the updates, but this can be left blank. It's mainly used for this box will appear on every tab of the Encore GPR, and it just provides you a space to explain something to a potential to your program officer or any other detail you want to include on a particular tab. In my case, this is all pretty straightforward in this general info tab, so I have nothing to say. So I'm going to move on, and we're going to click Save and go to Next Section. That's the button you'll probably be using most of the time when you're working on this. But for if any purposes you just wanted to save while you're working on something in the Encore GPR, I highly encourage that you use the Save button here on the left as often as you feel appropriate. As you know, Encore has a quick timeout, so save often, and that will prevent you from losing some of your work if you like run to the bathroom or take a break from this and then it times you out and you had a bunch of stuff written in there. So I clicked Saved and go to Next Section. All of these new tabs were created, and this should look familiar. A lot of these were things that we would have had you do in many different locations in Encore in the past. They are now in one spot, which allows us not to have to send a bunch of things back and forth. It's all in one spot and here for editing. So the first one that comes up is demographics. So as you'll see in the progress reporting instructions, what you are required to report on is the top 3 items: number of individuals who applied, and then the episodic and ongoing volunteers that were generated. So I'm going to, since that is required, I'm going to enter some numbers. You can see here that I already have previously reported data that came in from our, as I mentioned, we're working in quarter 5. When you first go in here, you won't see any of this data from prior periods. It'll be blank. But Encore is pulling in data that was falsely reported for this program in previous quarters. So I've already had, so theoretically we've already had 45 people already apply. Let's say in this quarter, we had 15 AmeriCorps, or 15 folks apply to be AmeriCorps members. This was a good quarter for volunteers. We got 200 episodic and 25 ongoing. As you may have guessed, because this is pulling in data from prior periods, this is not cumulative data that you'll be reporting here. So this is specifically data just for the quarter that you're working on. So then when it gets tallied up at the program officer level, we'll see both 45 plus 15. So if you're working in quarter 4, this should be all of the data from prior periods brought in there. What's interesting about this report and different from years prior is that this is an Accordion Style format. So you see a number of things here: the disaster services, military veterans, and school turnaround. Those are all hidden unless you click on them, and then it will open up the other demographic items that typically were all in one list in the past in Encore. So those are sort of hidden for ease of use. As you also see in the progress reporting instructions, you have to report on the top 3 demographic items, these 3 as I mentioned, but if your program collects data on indicators that are not required, so say you are collecting something on number of disasters to which your AmeriCorps members have responded, then you are required to report this data, that data in this report. So like I mentioned, for our test program, I only am reporting on the ones that are required because that's the only ones my test program is keeping data on. So I am all done with that. I can click save and go to next section. As you see, as we move through the Encore GPR, when you are saving and it thinks you have completed a section in the Encore GPR, it'll give you this green check mark. I don't think there's anything in the Encore GPR that is checking based on requirements, whether you're doing actually what you're supposed to be doing in that tab. There are a few, but know that even though if you have a green check mark, you may not be actually completing all of the requirements based. You may not be doing everything that Serve Wisconsin is asking you to do. So a green check mark just means that you've saved and completed this section, but that you should still be following the progress reporting instructions. Ultimately, you shouldn't be just going in there and entering numbers and waiting for Encore to give you an error message and basing your work off of those error messages. You should follow the progress reporting instructions whenever possible. Okay, we're in the MSY tab. Just pausing for a second to see chat. Looks like everything's still going well. So we're in the MSY report. This is probably your favorite part of the Encore GPR because this is the tab that you have really almost nothing to do. All you have to do is simply check, I have no MSY data to report this period, and then click save and go to next section. Again, it's just, all I did was check this top box up at the top. You'll see that this area where you could report data disappears. We don't have any grantee narrative for this section either. Nothing that, once again, you don't need to put anything in grantee narrative, and we don't have anything to report there. MSY, this tab is included because previously the corporation was looking for that information, and when Encore built their new all-in-one GPR, they built it to fit the corporation's requirements, and those have since changed. So the way we make this work is just by clicking that box. Also, just to mention that each tab has an option for you to click this, like I have no MSY data. To go back, the demographics also has that up there. Each of these tabs will have that option. That can be helpful if you are a program that has maybe works on a school calendar and you have a number of things that you report on the end of the year. If you don't have any data to report, you can just check the box and move on. Always you're going to have to save it though. It won't automatically save for you. So we're going to save this and go to the next section and move on to the performance indicator one. Here things get a little more tricky. We've asked you in the progress reporting instructions to do a number of things. There's 4 pieces that we're looking for you in this section, and there's only 2 text boxes. So we're going to put 2 things in each text box. And if you see, really Encore is asking you for that here. It's asking you for both retention and enrollment rates. If it if it doesn't meet CNCS's requirements, and then it's also asking about 30-day enrollment and exit rates. So those are 4 separate things. All 4 of these, if you're not sure what your retention and enrollment rate is or your 30-day enrollment exit rate is, you can find those in eGrants. So quickly, how to find those in eGrants. So this probably looks different for you because this is my eGrants, but I'll show you where you can find those reports if you don't know how to run them. We're going in the AmeriCorps portal and the SNN reports, state and national reports. And under here, this is where you'll have a drop-down menu with all of these options to run these reports. Yours might look a little different. Again, this is in my profile. But here, this is the enrollment approval cycle time report. That'll show you how long of a time period in days between start date and the member being enrolled. Conversely, the exit, how long between the exit date and the member being exited in the AmeriCorps portal that occurred. And then the enrollment rate and the retention rate reports are also in there, and those will give you a sheer percentage of your enrollment rate and retention rate. So once you run all 4 of those reports, I've run some and changed some of the data around to preserve confidentiality and changed some of the numbers. So we'll start with, so we first need retention and enrollment rates. The progress reporting instructions ask us to put some headings in here. So we're going to put the heading that it requests, enrollment rate, and afterwards we're going to need a retention rate in here. So we're going to find our enrollment rate, and I've run this sample report as I mentioned. And Adobe's going to work for the first time on this computer, hopefully. Or not. Okay. Probably a little small for you. Slow this up. So you'll see this is our test program. This is our federal ID, although this is different than what I entered at the beginning. I didn't think of to make those match, but that's where you could also get that program federal ID. We have 30 members enrolled and we have 30 slots to our grant. That makes our enrollment rate 100%, and there it shows it there. So we can go back to our Encore GPR. We're all content, 100%. Great. I don't have a retention rate report, but say you did, it would show the same sort of thing. But let's say the retention rate was 90%. Then the progress reporting instructions ask that you provide an explanation, and even Encore here is saying provide an explanation of why your enrollment rate or retention rate doesn't meet CNCS's requirements. Anything under 100% is not meeting CNCS requirements, so we need to provide an explanation and corrective action. I believe the progress reports call for corrective action as well, if my memory is correct. So I've prepared some sample text that I can just copy in there, hopefully. So this is my explanation for why the retention rate is under 100%. You see we're talking about 3 members who were exited early for non-compelling personal circumstance, 2 of them, had employment opportunities. The reasons I just all made up. Corrective action. We got our text. This all looks good. I worked on it outside of Encore because I was worried about timeout issues, and I'm still worried about timing out, so I'm going to go ahead and save right now. That's fine. It lets us save and still work on this. You'll see that it actually already gave us a green check mark for this area, but we still obviously have some work to do in this lower box. So now I need to find, so our retention rate, it was under 100%. We provide an explanation. This box is good, so we're going to move on. Now, the progress reporting instructions also ask for headings in this section. And I'm actually going to go and copy in a little extra text to make this go faster. So I've copied in both the headings, the 30-day enrollment rate, along with our reports. So here I said that 30 of 30 enrollments were compliant with the 30-day requirement. And as I mentioned, you can find this out on eGrants. So I ran a test report in eGrants. So I'll show you how to figure that out. So here's this sample report. It has member names. Blow this up again. Member names. This is our test program. Their enrollment date, and then the day that they were activated as members, and then the number of days in between there. The way that in which you are, there isn't, unlike the enrollment and retention rate reports that give you a sheer percentage, this report just gives you a list of names and numbers here. The way we do it here is we just look down the list and see if anyone is above 31 days. So, and 31 days is because that's the way this report is run. 31 days is considered compliant for the 30-day enrollment compliance requirement. So when you look down this list, you look and see, is there anyone with a total days before approval that's greater than 31? In this case, none of these members are. All of them, there's this one member that had 30, that's completely compliant. So that's the closest we get to 32 or above. So we go back and then we would write this same sort of thing. That 30 of 30 enrollments were compliant with the 30-day requirement. Great. No explanation needed. Let's say we ran our 30-day exit requirement, and as you saw, our retention rate was 90%. So we go back, and the exit rate, we had 3 members exit. That's why we were at 90% for retention, and only 2 out of the 3 of those exits were compliant with the 30-day requirement. But let's say, for example, that it was, we just forgot, this is the beginning of the year, and there's no reason that, that was outside of our control that this exit was not compliant. Then we do not need an explanation. The progress reporting instructions are only asking for explanations for reasons that are entirely beyond the program's control. So this might be if it's something in eGrants. Typically that's the reasons why either of these are off. If it were an eGrants thing, we would want you to go in and provide an explanation, like eGrants, as much detail as you could provide. You might want to also provide some supporting documentation. And if it's a really long explanation that you're providing, you can also expand these text fields boxes. That's in the bottom right-hand corner of any text box in the Encore GPR, you can expand that, and that'll allow you to see more of the text that you're writing. But okay, we're going to go ahead and move on. So I'm saving that one and moving on to the next section. We're on to performance measures. So for this one, I'd like to show you how to create a performance measure to begin. You see, we already have some performance measures in here, and I'll show you how to report progress to those in a second, but I'd like to first quickly show you how to enter performance measures. And to do that, I have to go back to the Encore GPR. Know that I'm going to do a few things quickly. This doesn't really matter. For your cases, when you first go in there, you'll see this. Add new. This will allow you to add a new performance measure. After your first quarterly progress report is submitted, and I believe approved, you will not be able to add another performance measure. So let's say you have a performance measure that you know you're only going to be reporting in quarter 4. You still want to add that performance measure right now because later you won't be able to go in and add those. So add all of your performance measures, including the citizenship training one or the first aid one if you're having to do that, right at the beginning, your first quarterly progress report. So we're going to do that. We're going to add a new one. And, ooh, this does not look good on my screen. Let's see if I can make this work. My apologies for that. I got to be able to see what I'm working on. So we're going to create a sample performance measure really quickly, and this is for the test program. Let's say it's a disaster recovery performance measure. The performance measure instructions will tell you that you should be copying as much as possible from your approved grant application. Unfortunately, our test program doesn't have an approved eGrants grant application, so I'm just making things up. And let's say it's disaster services and we're providing assistance. And our primary focus is community outreach. It'll ask you for secondary focus area and objectives. Know that all 4 of these, the primary focus area and objective down to secondary intervention, those are not required fields, but if you can provide something in here, please do that. Again, here you can edit these text fields to make them longer, however you want it to do that. And I've already created a sample community problem or need, but this would come directly from your grant proposal. Just going to go ahead and copy that in. And our describe interventions. Again, these are going to come exactly from your grant application. Activity start date. Again, this program, its grant start date was back September 1. So I'm going to select that. And we're going to choose its end date as, I can just type these. We're going to choose it a year after that. All right. Didn't like that. So maybe I have to choose this the hard way. So we selected August 31st of 2017. Number of slots in MSY, this should come from the grant application. So let's say all 30 of our members are dedicating their time to this. It will send you an error message if you don't have anything in there. So for the citizenship PM, please enter zeros in here, and that has specific instructions to do so in the progress reporting instructions to enter zeros for the citizenship one. We can move on. These can be blank, these last two fields. We're going to click Save and Enter Measure. Now this will provide us an opportunity to create an output or an outcome. We're going to create the measure here, and I'm just going to make a sample output for time's sake. But let's say that this is measure D2, and we have 1,000 individuals that received CNCS. All right. And then we're going to select our related PM code. This is a national PM, so we're going to select that. It is a priority measure, and it is, it's not an outcome, so we're going to leave that blank. And it is measured by an activity log, and that should be in your approved grant application. Our target number is 1,000, as we already put in there. It's a number. And our described instrument, we have a whole bunch of text for that. Where is that? Again, this is going to be copied directly from your grant proposal. So we're going to save and create that measure. It'll give you an opportunity to create a new one if you were to do that. But like I said, we're only going to create an output for samples case. And now we have this new measure in here, along with the ones that were already created, disaster recovery. And if you want to look at it, make sure everything looks quite all right, you just click on the measure. That'll give you that first screen that appeared. And then if you want to look at either the outputs or outcomes that you wanted to review, you got to go over here and click this View Measures, and it will show you that D2 that we made. And you can add another one in here. But we're not going to do that. All right, let's go back to our progress report that we were working on. We have this new measure that we just created. So let's go ahead and submit some progress to those. Here you go. So our first quarterly progress report, you'll see the output comes up first because that's the really only one that we made. It shows the measure in there and your target. Here we are reporting cumulative data here, always cumulative data. So even though actually in our school engagement one we've had progress reporting to this one previously, but you'll see it does not show up in this one. So let's go ahead and report some cumulative data. Let's say 292. Actually, sorry, I'm going to go back to the school engagement one because we have an output and outcome in there. Say we had 20 students, actually 60 students. We've met the target even in our first quarter. So we changed that met target drop down to yes. And then I will change, then I do not need an explanation or corrective action because it does not show because we have met the target. Now in our this is the outcome. Something to keep in mind here is it puts the outcomes first over the outputs. But here in our output, let's say we have 250 shows us right away that we didn't meet our target, so we need an explanation to provide in corrective action. So we're going to go get some text that we had written already for our explanation. And we're going to say that's our explanation, and we're moving on. And in these MSY and slots sections, you're going to say put zeros in, and it's going to require, and then you're going to change these met target areas to yes, even though these are areas that you are not required to report data in. So we have you put zeros and yeses in there. Otherwise, you're going to get the error message that I just did. So we do that. Now our first PM progress report has been submitted, and you get a green check mark there. So we're going to save and move on to our next section, saying that we need to submit all of our progress reports for each of those, but for our sake, we're not going to go through and do all those. And then lastly, we're going to get to the narratives. So for quarter one progress reports, you only need to be entering text into the other narrative box. The rest of these top three will be used in your final reports, and there are plenty of instructions on how to do that. So in the other narrative box, we need to provide two things: the successes and challenges and the independent accomplishment participation in a National Day of Service. So we're going to start off with our successes. Put a little heading in there. That great success is we met and exceeded our target in ED1. That's great. And we can put more text in there. And our challenge, that we had 3 members exit early. Obviously, you'd want to put more text in there and some more explanations, but we're just going to take the fast route. And then our independent accomplishment. And we haven't had any members participate in a National Day of Service yet. Great. So we're going to save and go on to the next measure. And usually this would allow you to see this review tab once you were submitting in there. I'm going to get to that in a different area. So once we have done everything in all of these tabs, we got all the green check marks, you'll see a new tab forms, and that's the review one. And this allows you to review, same way the demographics one worked, in accordion format, everything that you've submitted or have saved. And in here, you cannot make any changes to something. So if you were to say, actually some of these demographic figures aren't correct, I'm going to have to go back, click this tab, and go back and make those changes. But let's say we all have everything correct. We submit all the sections. It shows me the time and the date that I submitted it. My program officer has not approved it yet, nor has it been rejected. It's definitely on their end. So they can review it. When they were to when your program officer reviews this, they will go in there, and if they send something back, well, I can quickly do that on the program officer level to show you what it looks like on our end to send one back. So it shows me here that I have a Q2 progress report from our test program here to review. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to look and say I have an issue with this demographic period one because they didn't report any ongoing volunteers. I'm not sure whether they reported 0 or if they actually just forgot to report something in there. So I'm going to say, check your ongoing volunteer numbers. This needs further attention. We're going to save and move on to our next section. Everything else looks good. This MSY one, there's no, all of these look fine. Oh, and so I've finished reviewing them all. The demographics report, it shows me the demographics has been rejected. So let's move back to our test program. And now in the test program, I see that I have the rejected Q2 report. Obviously needs some attention, and it shows in converse to all the green check marks at the top, we got a red one that notifies us that something needs to be looked at here. And I could see what my program officer wrote in here. I forgot to put in my ongoing volunteer numbers. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I make a little note for my program officer. I save, go to the next sections. The review tab is there again, so we can submit it back, and we do. Great. So that is our quarterly progress report that is submitted. I'm going to pause and look for questions. So we have two questions. One is on the general info screen, there is no drop-down box. It says mid-year and is grayed out and showing it cannot be changed. So that's in reference to if we were to go in here. Obviously, now we don't get the option to add a new report in this test program because we've already gone through and created all of our new ones. But say you did have the option to add new, and you go in here and you're trying to select this reporting period. If it's grayed out, I would recommend contacting on-course support for that. It may be that somehow your program is set up for mid-year progress reports instead of quarterly. I am not aware of a solution, or contacting your program officer on that one. And our other question shows the citizenship. We had a question in regards to the citizenship progress PM progress report and what wording that should be used in creating the performance measure for the citizenship one. There is some sample language in the PM progress reporting instructions on what to use for your citizenship PM. there are some flexibilities in how you set that up. So if you want to use wording that was from previous years, you can do that. And your program officer will obviously review that and provide some input. We had a question about the best web browser to be using for this report. Encore, I know, recommends using Firefox and Chrome. Even though you've had issues with those in the past, those are the two that Encore is recommending. It's not a system without flaws, so it's potential that it's not an issue with your browser, but merely the system itself. So that is all the questions that I'm seeing at the moment. I had scheduled this webinar to go a little bit shorter originally, but I would still like to show you how to do a member reflections submission in the new member reflections submission form. And because those are to be entered, if possible, along with your quarterly progress reports. So to do that, I'm going to go to Wigio first to find the link to the form. And I am in our folder tab on Wigio in our program resources folder. And I'm moving on to progress reporting because we're doing our progress reports. And you'll see a lot of instructions. Oh, actually, this must be in the member reflections area. My apologies. We're in the member reflections area and then this link. Okay, so this is the new member reflections form. It is a little bit different than Encore. It has a couple helpful reminders for you before you submit. And then the first question it's going to ask is, what sort of content are you looking to submit today? There's no limit to how many times you do this form. So sometimes programs might want to be submitting just a few reflections at a time. Some people might want to be submitting a ton. Both are fine. Let's say we have both written and digital content to share today. So I'm going to go ahead and check both. And this is our test program. And then we're going to go in, I have some sample reflections from last year. So first it takes us to this new screen that shows us a text box, a number of text boxes, and then this white text box at the bottom. This is for written content that you're looking to share. So it asks for the member name, their host site, and the city. And everything that's required is shown with a red asterisk. So I have some sample reflections that members had submitted in years past and this year. So let's say our first one is from Jason, and we've collected these from our members. So I'm going to go ahead and half screen this so I can look at Jason's reflection while I enter it. So this is Jason, and he is serving at Madison East. I'm seeing that right here in the top, and he performs the majority of his service at Madison. And now I have his reflection, which is a great reflection. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the whole thing, copy it, and paste it. And I'm going to make this bigger so we can see it now. Well, the reflection seems to maintain most of Jason's formatting. There's a couple extra spaces in there. I'm going to go ahead, review. Oh, another one here. it's, oh, it still preserved the italics from his biography. So that all looks good. I'm fine with that. Once I click away from this, JotForm does this very scary thing where it takes everything and makes it white. I haven't been able to change this, but know that it's still there. So if you just click away from this text box, the text will white out on a white background, but it is definitely still there. And we have another reflection to submit because we had 2 this round. Our second one's down at the bottom here. It's a poem. So we just click this yes, I have another reflection to submit box. And then you notice that instead of allowing you to go to the next page, it pops up another area for you to enter more. So I'm going to pull this over again so I can copy some of this information. Oops. And they're in the Northland Pines. And let's say this is in Rhinelander. So now I go ahead and copy this again. I also probably want to include the member's title. Jason's didn't have that, but this one does. And now I'm going to review how it looks in that text box. And this was a poem, if you remember, and I can't really edit the spacing, so I don't really like how this looks. So we're going to go ahead and this mostly applies to poems or written reflections where the formatting is very important to the understanding of the reflection. So I don't like how this looks. So I'm going to go back up and get rid of it. And there's this option up at the top if you would like to submit the reflection piece as a Word document to preserve its formatting. And in this case I do, because I now have a reflection piece that the formatting doesn't quite look right. So let's say it's this document. It's not, but I'm just going to upload a random document. There you can upload your Word document here, and now you have that member reflection in a Word document with the formatting preserved as it was. This is not, this is meant to be used in cases as few as possible. We really want you to be getting them in these text boxes as much as possible, but in case you have an instance where you can't get that through, then you just do it there. So now that we've gotten our 2 up there, we're going to move on. And now we're on to our digital content area. And this right away just offers you an opportunity to upload everything or share links. It's a really simple beginning. So let's say we have an image that was really great from this past quarter that we'd like to share with the commission. Then you just click this button. It'll open a box for you to do that. I'm going to go to where we have this image stored. It's the reflection photo. So now I uploaded it and a text box appeared. And you can see here at the bottom that it has some instructions here. You are to include a description of the uploaded file and the name of the featured member. And also if you are hovering over this text box, it also provides you some examples of how to do that. So let's say I have some text written here for this. So this reflection photo, this is the member's name. The title of the photo is reflection photo, so that's why it's listed here. And it's, this is the reflection photo. It's the member riding a lawn tractor, so I describe that they're doing riding the lawn tractor. So image is uploaded, we described it, we're all done. Click next, and it'll take you to a number of agreements, a lot of text saying, oh, yep, this is fine, this submission is, you can use this submission, I'm agreeing to all these terms of these submissions, number of checkboxes, and submit. Boom, done. And you've successfully submitted a member reflection piece, and 3 of them at that in this case. Great. Oh, the one last thing I forgot to mention is going back to Encore, jumping gears. I'll start taking questions at any point, but wanted to remind you that in advance of your quarterly progress reports, we have the Wisconsin Volunteer Mobilization that you have to submit targets to. I posted a reminder of this on Wigio just last night. So you have to, in advance of the January 20th progress reporting deadline, you're going to need to go in, submit these targets in the volunteer mobilization, and have your program officer approve them so that you can then go in and then enter the numbers. So this will look the same for you. Let's say our targets are big, they're 2,000, and the hours that they're going to serve is 2,000. Ongoing, we don't have any ongoing ones, and no hours served by them. And then I would provide a description here. I don't have any prepared in advance, but describe typically what you have those volunteers do, and then you can submit that for approval. And so you'll need an approved target before you can submit progress. So do that this week as soon as possible. Thanks everyone for attending the webinar. That's all I got for today. Hopefully this was helpful. And I'm going to stick around for some questions if you have any. And obviously we'll be available at any point if you have more questions about the progress reporting since it is new. And thank you. We'll post the recording as soon as possible.